Chapter 3. All the Way from Paris. Christina's days were nearly always the same. She began work at the museum at 8:30 and left at 4:30. Then she went to the gym after work and stayed there for about an hour and a half. Then she went back home. She sometimes stopped at the supermarket on her way. Roberto and Carlos watched her for 6 days until their plan to kill her was ready. Christina, on the other hand, did not feel that her life was the same as before. The museum and her hours were the same, but her work was very different. The new exhibition was keeping her very busy, and she was very happy. Christina was sitting in her office when the phone rang. "Hello? Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes? Christina Rinaldi speaking." "Oh, Christina, hello." Christina knew the French voice. "Hello, Philippe. How is everything?" "Fine, thank you. How are you?" asked Philippe. "Great. When are you arriving?" "On Wednesday. My plane arrives in Buenos Aires at 9:15 in the morning. I'm traveling with Air France. The flight number is AF602. Will anyone be there to meet me?" "Oh, yes, I'll be there. I'll meet you and take you to your hotel. Then, when you're ready, you can come to the museum." "That's fine. Thank you, Christina. I'm flying back to Paris on Monday, so I'll have time to look around Buenos Aires a little. Everyone tells me it's a beautiful city, so I'm going to be a tourist as well as a museum director." "Good idea. There's so much to see. I think you'll like it," answered Christina. She liked the sound of this man's voice. "I'm looking forward to meeting you." "Me too. I'll see you at the airport on Wednesday." "Have a good flight." "Thank you. Goodbye." Christina put the phone down and looked at the picture of the Claude Monet painting she had on the wall in her office. When she was 15 years old, she went to France with her parents and fell in love with that painting with its field of red poppies. She went to see every Impressionist painting she could find in Paris. She spent hours in the museums and didn't want to leave Paris. Her parents understood then that she was serious about studying art at university. She kept the picture on the wall in her office because it made her feel good. She had the same picture on her bedroom wall. She often looked at it when she was thinking. But today, she looked away from it quickly. There was something strange about the picture today. It didn't make her feel happy. It gave her a strange feeling inside. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because she was thinking so much about the new exhibition. An exhibition of 37 paintings was a lot of work. She had a lot to do before Philippe arrived on Wednesday. She took her notebook and left her office. She had to talk to somebody about the lights for the exhibition. That afternoon, she left the museum a little later than usual. Carlos Bocuzzi was still outside, but he was getting tired of waiting. Maybe she went home early. Maybe she's ill. Maybe she's working late, he thought to himself. Just then, Christina came out of the museum, and Carlos followed her. Christina walked into Plaza Francia as usual, but then stopped for a moment. She looked up at the white stone bodies of the monument in the center of the plaza. The French people who lived in Buenos Aires gave this monument to the city in 1910. This was the monument she could see from her office window in the museum across the street. Now she was thinking about France and the French paintings that would soon be in the museum behind her. Carlos stood in the Plaza Francia. Most of the other people there were students from the university building behind the museum. They stood around in groups. They were waiting for friends and talking. In the park, behind Carlos, the dog walkers of Buenos Aires were taking their dogs for their afternoon walk. Each girl or boy had 7 or 8 dogs that needed a walk morning and afternoon. It was often a job for young people who wanted to earn some money. They stopped at the flats in their area to get the dogs and then took them out to the city parks. Carlos was watching Cristina and thinking. He was beginning to feel that he knew this girl, and it was more difficult than before to think of killing her. But he knew that Roberto had a good plan. I mustn't be afraid, Carlos thought to himself. Roberto is careful. He has thought of everything. Roberto has been to the gym 3 times, each time with different color hair and different clothes. Now Roberto knew about day tickets to the gym and knew which machines and weights Cristina used. This evening, Carlos didn't need to stay outside the gym and wait for Cristina. This evening, Carlos could go home. It was the last time he had to follow Cristina. Roberto was going to kill her the next day. I must not be afraid. Only a few hours more, he said to himself over and over again. Carlos was afraid, but he felt sure that his brother would kill Cristina. Roberto was strong. That woman has to die, Roberto told him every night. Chapter 4. An Accident in the Gym. The next evening, after work, Cristina was doing exercises in the gym. 28, 29, 30. Her stomach began to hurt, but she didn't stop. She was working hard. She wanted to feel as good as she did before the accident. She decided to stay longer that evening and do a few more exercises. She was finding it hard to stay in the flat in the evenings this week. She couldn't sit quietly and watch television or listen to music. In less than 24 hours, she had to be at Ezeiza Airport, and she had to be ready for every question Philippe Maudet could ask. She looked around the gym. It was crowded, and most of the machines were busy. There were more new health clubs in the city of Buenos Aires than new restaurants. Spring was especially busy as people were beginning to think of the summer and going to the beach. Cristina went into the weights room. It wasn't crowded in there. You could always find a quiet place around 5 o'clock. Cristina chose her weight and lay on her back. She didn't look behind her, but she knew that there was somebody else there. She closed her eyes and thought about her favorite painting, the one in her office. This usually helped her to lift the weight. She thought about that field of red flowers. But once again, the picture in her head of the painting gave her a strange feeling. The red flowers made her feel afraid. She decided to think about home. That was better. After a few minutes, she was ready to lift the heavy weight above her head. Daniel, the gym manager, sat in his office looking out of the door towards the busy gym. He was thinking about Cristina. She was the kind of person he liked, and he felt they could be friends. Daniel had a girlfriend in his home city of Rosario, and he was finding life very quiet without her. He had a cousin in Buenos Aires, and sometimes they went out for a pizza together, and then went dancing on Friday or Saturday evenings. But Daniel wanted to find some friends of his own and start to build a life in the city center. Christina was the first person he wanted to make friends with. He wanted to ask her to go out for a pizza that weekend. Suddenly, Daniel heard a shout. He got up quickly and ran out of his office. Somebody was hurt in the weights room. People were already there. Daniel looked down and saw the long black hair of the girl on the floor. It was Christina. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked. "I'll call an ambulance." She wanted to get up. Her arm was hurt, but she didn't want to stay on the floor. She got up slowly and moved away from the people. "I'm okay," she said to Daniel. "I don't need anything. It's just my arm." Daniel took her slowly to his office and gave her a chair. "Sit here and rest for a moment," he said. After a short time, Christina looked a little better. "I feel much better. I don't need an ambulance." "Are you sure?" "I just want to go home," Christina said. "Okay, but could you tell me what happened?" Daniel said. "It's important that I know." "I'm not really sure," Christina said quietly. "I think the weight fell, but I moved just in time. It hit my arm. Maybe it was too heavy for me." "Accidents do happen sometimes," Daniel said. "The important thing is that you're all right." Daniel then went to look around the weights room. He looked at the heavy weight on the floor. "Christina must be strong," he thought. He went back to his office. He wasn't sure that Christina was telling him everything about the accident. Her face was very white, and she looked afraid. "Are you sure the weight fell?" he asked. "No, it didn't," Christina said quietly. "Somebody pushed the weight. I saw it and moved just in time." Could it be true that somebody wanted to hurt her? Daniel thought. He wanted to find out who was in the gym that evening. Everybody who came to the gym showed their health club card to the receptionist, and the number went into the computer. He could look at the computer and see who came in that day. He could also see how many day tickets were bought that morning. But he couldn't know who bought the day tickets. First, he needed to help Christina home. "Can I give you a ride home in my car?" he asked. "No, thank you. I prefer to walk. The air will be good for me," Christina answered. Then she stood up. She didn't feel well. "Maybe that ride is a good idea," she said. Before Daniel left the office, he spoke quickly to Florencia. He asked Florencia to try and remember anything she could about visitors to the gym that week. "I'll be here early in the morning. Maybe you can tell me then what you remember," he said to Florencia as he left the gym. Christina was a little afraid. She wasn't sure about going in Daniel's car. He looked kind and friendly, but she didn't even know his full name. She was going to say that she wanted to walk, but then he said, "Don't worry. I just want to be sure that you get home safely." Christina got in. She wasn't afraid now. "I think I've found my first friend in the city," she thought, as he drove her home.